Hi everyone. Hi Brennan. Happy to be here. My name is Jorge Risquez, co-founder of Bops. Super excited to kind of be here at Winning with Walmart. Today we're going to be talking about next generation CPFR, collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment. And we're really going to do it super informally. We're going to be chit chatting and talking about how are we already helping as Bops CPG suppliers avoid stockouts and overstocks, and then therefore reduce lost sales, markdowns, returns at Walmart at the different kind of retail stores. So I'm super excited to kind of share a little bit about Bob's capabilities. What's the problem and thesis that we have into the market? And then we're going to end up mostly talking about a success story. So Brennan, why don't you just give us a quick kind of intro?
Yeah, hi everyone. Brennan Stoufflet. I'm excited to bring the 15 plus years of CPG experience at various companies from Kraft Foods to SC Johnson and most recently with Kimberly-Clark to this side of the solutions um, part of the problem we're discussing today and to enhance the next gen CPFR capability. I'm excited to share with you today a case study and sort of BOP specific capabilities, and maybe share some insight into what someone in the CPFR analyst manager type roles can learn today.
Absolutely. And Brennan, just to go deeper, right? And I think you have a wonderful experience, and you're kind of underrepresenting it. But you started your career in the navies, but then right away you went and started working towards the customer supply chain functions of some of the major CPGs as you referred. So can you tell us a little bit more, and also tell me a little bit more about why you joined Bob's and kind of in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, upon a wonderful start to my career in the Navy, I joined Kraft Foods in a customer service role where you're taking the orders from customers and leveraging our SAP order management system, but also was able to be in VMI or vintage vendor managed inventory, as well as moving into roles in demand planning for big customers for Kraft before landing in Northwest Arkansas, where I'm still am today. So it's been 15 years almost here in Northwest Arkansas, and that was to start the CPFR specific role that Kraft created to relocate from Georgia to Northwest Arkansas. And from there, the organization certainly gave plenty of opportunity, and then ultimately a few different roles in Walmart International and leading U.S. teams at SC Johnson, and then also leading Sam's Club and Walmart positions at Kimberly-Clark. So most roles focused in customer supply chain that touch into a lot of the CPFR acronym, if you will, right? A lot of collaboration in these roles because you have the internal and external stakeholders that require you to have forecasting and planning capability, both internally and the replenishment manager relationship that you have. And then even more bringing backwards and forwards, I'd say at the same time is you have order management, which is replenishment within your organization, but also then activating the more digital capabilities that each of the retailers have progressed over the years to have as a major input in order to get your orders to you in the way in which you would seem that ultimately lead to that on-shelf availability that we're all seeking at a high rate.
Awesome. Well, super excited to have you here. And obviously, as we're going through the presentation, feel free to kind of compliment, jump in, because it's been exciting to work with you and your knowledge, and definitely kind of solve some of the biggest stockouts, potential stockouts that never happen, and overstocks in the industry. Um, as I mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO. Prior to kind of joining Bops, I was working at Deloitte Consulting with many CPGs and retailers, some of the major ones, like Tyson Foods back then in Northwest Arkansas, but many others like Pepsi, and kind of I quickly saw that there was a big gap in the market that we're going to be able to share. The problem that we're really solving, and this is why we pretty much wake up every morning, is there's a $1.7 trillion that is being lost annually because of out of stocks and overstocks in the retail CPG, the global retail CPG industry. These are numbers from 2023. And part of our thesis into the market is, well, Yeah, we have known this for the past, what, 30 years. So why now? Why you exist, Bops? It's kind of the questions that I get from a lot of people from the audience. And part of our thesis, and I'm going to try to simplify it because we just have 20 minutes. Part of our thesis is that this gap of $1.7 trillion could be bridged if we better enable supply chain collaboration. So think about this. If we could better sync consumer demand with inventory flow, all the way, obviously, from when a consumer goes into their phone and buys at Walmart, or when they go into a Walmart store, um, into kind of what we call the retail distribution network, which is a retailer distribution center. There's all the 4,000 stores at Walmart, all the way down to kind of the CPGs network, the distribution centers and the manufacturing facilities. As you could see, there's the famous bullwhip effect where today, most of the CPGs have been planning or doing their supply chain planning by mostly using orders or seeing Walmart as just one customer. But reality is that Walmart is beyond one customer. We're talking about 4,000 stores with many SKUs across, with many kind of variabilities, a lot of distribution centers, which obviously, Brennan, you could talk about. So kind of synchronizing that in that consumer demand with inventory flow, with the different type of order cycles, lead times, it's critical for CPGs today to be able to kind of reduce an out of stock or an overstock, and then the end goal is to really be able to satisfy the consumer. This obviously, as CPGs are looking to solve this problem, it benefits directly Walmart and many other retailers as well, because they're going to have better product availability, a lower operational cost, and they're going to be more proactive. So that's part of our thesis, and that's one of the root causes that we're trying to kind of solve here. Anything else that you want to add, Brennan, on why we think out of stocks and overstocks are happening, besides many other kind of reasons, but this is one of the key ones that we're solving, along with the kind of what we call the CPFR and the collaboration between Walmart and suppliers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is ongoing for retail, and we would expect that this challenge will continue into the future in retail, right? When you have complex replenishment systems, complex locations, many locations, and in every store shelf, plus the omni-channel, certainly integrates new challenges for how to track all of the information coming in. And this is where we believe that the technology has to do many things. It has to incorporate getting into your regular operations where you say there's not as much volatility. You understand what you can make and what you can ship to a retailer. But what about the consumer's input, meaning the point of sale at the shelf, plus the complex digital capabilities that each retailer has to feed the data that they have to you? How do you ingest that data? How do you then incorporate that into your internal processes? Is also where this not in sync with inventory flow may come into play. And it's best served when you have a group of people that understand both challenges, that can speak to it from a similar maybe lens, and then know who to go to for help. So this challenge isn't going away, but we believe that the next gen CPFR plays a role in helping in many levers that we're going to discover here in the next few slides. But it's exciting to know that it's going to be a journey. We know that it's not a quick fix, and that it's inevitably going to continue. But we believe we have some interesting insight to share that can help both the retailers and the CPGs.
Awesome. Again, we're gonna fall short, but I think kind of connecting the dots with what you just said, Brennan. We all will think by having access to Luminate Basic or Luminate Charter, our problems will be solved. With just having access to data, yeah, problem solved. We don't need a Brennan CPFR. We don't need a Jorge to ever solve this problem. But that's not right. In reality, is when Walmart more than 20 years ago started sharing data through the Retail Link decision support system, it was obviously a big innovation into the industry. But if you think about it, is okay, how do we then grab that data, turn it into kind of information and insights, but we take it also beyond into workflows that follow processes and workflows with your, as Brennan mentioned, your external counterparts, your obviously replenishment managers that you're working within each of your categories, or with your buyers externally, but also with your internal supply chain teams, how you take those insights and informations and intelligence that you can extrapolate from very powerful tools like Walmart Luminate in order to really reduce the out of stocks and overstocks. More than that, we're challenging ourselves at Bops to take all this data and go from the flow of data to go from the flow of intelligence to synchronize this consumer demand from the retailer systems all the way down to the CPG systems so that they could be kind of cohesively in sync to improve out of stocks and overstocks. So Bops really, it's all about, okay, how do we grab the data? We process the data, we normalize the data, multi-retailer, but today we're focusing on Walmart. So think about us processing the data either from Walmart Basic or Walmart Luminate Charter, and creating workflows to drive actionability. At the forefront, you have the multi-customer control towers. You could picture this as a retail analytics layer, but that is extremely flexible and configurable for each supplier. Each supplier is different. I could ask Brennan, right? Brennan probably, when he was at Kimberly-Clark, he will have different lead times and order cycles than, for example, a Colgate or a Coty or a Duracell. And also different type of replenishment models. You might have companies with cross-stock replenishment models versus warehouse models. So, and this is just speaking about Walmart, but imagine obviously extrapolating this to many other of your customers. So the multi-customer control tower adapts to kind of your supply chain network. It also connects to your internal data, ERP data, or in some cases planning data, so that you could have what we call a multi-customer control tower, but that gives you a live view of your insights. Where do you have your exceptions? Where you have your out of stocks, overstocks? Now we are taking it to the next layer. So if you look from left all the way to the right, we have three major capabilities that have multiple workflows, each of those. The first one is predictive, and now we're starting to call it a collaborative on-shelf availability. So this is pretty much very sophisticated algorithms, again, adaptable to the category and the supplier by itself, you in this case, your brand, that extrapolate patterns to know if you have your product on the shelf or not. So this is very directed towards retail operations. We have partnerships with merchandisers like such as Anderson to kind of send alerts to them and have a closed loop feedback systems that learns so that merchandisers along with the CPGs could reduce these out of stocks. That's what on-shelf availability means. However, this is not working in siloed. This is connected to folks like Brennan and folks like you, replenishment and customer supply chain teams or CPFR teams that work with the smart CPFR. So you're not only getting the retail ops signals, but you're also starting to think about your retail supply chain network and what are the underlying causes of an out of stock or an overstock. Is it an under or over forecast? Is it a combination of an under forecast with the wrong planning parameter, the min-max or safety stock that you're having? Is it a problem because of a promotional that wasn't in sync with your forecast? Or is it a problem because of your fuel rate? So understanding where those issues are coming requires a lot of, I wouldn't call deep algorithms, but pre-configured algorithms with rules of your supply chain network to be able to determine where that problem is happening. And then more than that, what to do next. Workflows too. If the problem, Brennan, is a forecast, a under forecast because of a more than 25% variance or a change in promotion, how do we solve that with your replenishment manager counterparts? If a problem is phantom inventory and there's probably a bigger mechanical problem with phantom inventory spread across the 4,000 stores, how do we solve that? If the problem is an over forecast that is creating an over order, how do we solve that? So those are the workflows that we work along Smart CPFR. And then last but not least, the connection to connected CPFR to S&OE process. So we're working very closely with the planning tools like Kinaxis, O9, SAP IBP, so that we could create a multi-customer supply chain network or what we call a supply plan so that we could better sync the demand or sense the demand of some of those tools so that they could spit out and have better fill rates and also forecast accuracy to support, in this case, Walmart and other retailers as well. There's other type of capabilities that come in there, like order allocation, but we usually activate connected CPFR and S&OE for suppliers when they have more than one retailer, all with just one single goal. How do we reduce lost sales and markdowns from out of stocks? How do we improve inventory turns and write-offs? how do we improve your cost to serve? How do we improve that productivity rather than you having to extract the data out of Illuminate? How do we kind of change that up? But more than that, how do we keep your thoughts around as a CPFR or customer supply chain replenishment or even sales analyst to solve, well, how do I improve my cost to serve? How do I lower my transportation costs? So that's really what we've been able as part of Bops, and this is where we wanted to kind of spend most of our time. That was a lot about Bops. So Brennan, anything that you want to complement in here?
Yeah, certainly. I think the big thing here, you reread the headline, right? It's how do you get more connected? How do you have some predictive capability, and then automating some of that capability into your processes? All knowing you'll need the continued intelligence as the input. So Jorge spoke a good bit about what is the settings you may have for a particular item may be different with regards to your promotions. It could be the lead time changes. It could be many of these instances where you require the intelligence from what you know about your business in order to become data beyond just the Illuminate data. And in the connecting of these modules that you see here, if you will, or the whole process becomes more visible to more people that are overlap in their roles. And I think the best way to speak to that is through an example. And in the example that we'll share next, Jorge will to tip it off, but how do you even connect what's most real to us is you have to get to the shelf, right? We're enabling in these journeys. How do we sell more product? How do we be more efficient? The transportation, the reducing the cost to serve. But this is one customer success story where you're about to see, hey, how are we connecting the shelf to these processes where the analysts that are in retail ops or in the customer supply chain team can both see each other's metrics, but then work together on a common metric next to each other. And I'll let him go, but what I'll close with, if you have phantom inventory, and then usually the Walmart system then lowers the forecast. Why? Because you've been stuck on inventory not selling. So it lowers the forecast, which then the following week you sell 0 again and you have a lower forecast. How do I correct the forecast if I don't send Anderson to the shelf to validate that the inventory is not there, or how to spur this sale again? This is a great story to tell, but how do you do this embedded into your process every week, day in and day out, in order to drive the results that your organization is seeking?
I think you said it right. The customer that you're seeing here, obviously on the battery category, a Berkshire Hathaway company, and we're gonna keep it high level, obviously, due to kind of ensure that we maintain kind of the confidentiality of our customer. But in terms of the opportunity, is we started to see a lot of out of stocks, and the out of stocks. A lot of people think, well, an out of stock might be because I have inventory equals to 0. I was like, no, an out of stock is the product not available at the shelf for the consumer to be able to buy it. So obviously that translates very quickly into kind of our on-shelf availability indicator or KPI. And then obviously the amount of lost sales that you're losing because of not having the product at the shelf. What I really like about this particular story is that our customer different type of customer functions came together. And you might be sitting as a supplier and be thinking is, usually your sales and key account teams are working alone. They're not working sometimes in collaboration with the customer supply chain teams or the CPFR teams, and not even with the retail operations team. And don't get me started with demand planners. So this customer has done a fantastic job bringing those functions together to solve the different type of problems to really solve an out of stock. An out of stock, as I mentioned, could happen because of the wrong demand signals or a problem at the retail shelf. And that's where we enable kind of predictive on-shelf availability. We connect it to kind of their merchandisers, create a closed loop and self-learning algorithm that is sending alerts to the merchandisers, but is also using the feedback from the merchandisers and the store audits to create a real on-shelf availability indicator. But more than that, get feedback of why the product is not selling the way it's supposed to sell, and fixing those problems. Again, it could be a distribution void, a problem with the price, a problem with the tag. It could also be a problem with the inventory being at the back room. So what was interesting is that they merge with the smart CPFR. So they have the smart CPFR analysts that are working for the different accounts that you're seeing in here. And they were able to really use some of the workflows that we talked before to create incremental orders when there was a hurricane, or create incremental orders when they were falling short, when inventory was actually coming closer to zero. More than that, they were also kind of be able to kind of look at the forecast at the different type of levels of granularity to see when an under forecast was creating an out of stock. When an under forecast with different type of lead time lags, not the week before, but 3-4 weeks before, when Duracell was making the planning for their inventory, was important. So we helped them pretty much through kind of workflows and simulation tools to kind of improve the outcomes and obviously get to kind of a reduction in lost sales and on shelf availability. And this will definitely kind of start getting, it is already starting getting translated into how they're continue to gain more market share in the category. So this is just an example. Unless you want to add anything else, Brennan, I'm going to go and explain at a high level some of the workflows of how Bops works in the platform and the algorithms and workflows.
Yeah, perfect, Jorge. Go ahead and dive into the process.
I'm just going to give you one because I know we're falling short on time, but let's just use the predictive on-shelf availability. We're processing the data that you're gathering out of Walmart Luminate in this case. Again, it could be basic or it could be charter. We're getting obviously a good enough history where the algorithm is learning. More than that, we're kind of creating what we call an estimated out of stocks. We have out of stocks, we know because of logistical issues when the inventory is in zero, but we also have out of stocks or patterns where we know there's a problem at the store. Those are pretty much configured in the platform. We take into account, obviously, lead times, order frequencies, and that comes down into kind of connecting with their merchandisers. Merchandisers have been outstanding because they are the ones that have the field operators or the preferred service providers to go into the Walmart stores to go do the audits and fix the problems. So when, let's just say you have 10 SKUs at a particular store, and then you got 3 alerts, well, those field operators are going to check those 3 alerts and identifying the root cause, the real root cause of having a retail ops or a retail store ops problem. As I mentioned, it could be a plot bind and it could be a distribution void. They pretty much give that feedback and then the algorithm learns. Why is it important that the algorithm learns? Well, out of those 3 alerts, I might be sending a slow-moving inventory alert, which was not valid for the merchandiser. So what is interesting about this is that eventually the algorithm takes into account if I send the wrong alert, they go to the store and the product is actually on the shelf, they actually flag it as slow-moving inventory or on shelf so that we could get that closed-loop feedback into the system. That for us is what we call a model where you go not just from data, you use the data to process and create insights. You go from the insights, the out-of-stock insights to create a workflow so you could drive full actionability and reduce an out-of-stock. Just want to kind of articulate that unless you want to add anything else, Brennan.
Yeah, no, and the other interesting thing for our you spoke a good bit about the retail ops and how this will help drive sales, and sometimes those groups are different than our customer supply chain group or CPFR team. However, the data gets captured, and now in your typical weekly or daily report that has your in-stock percentage next to your weeks of supply, next to your on-hand quantity, and your forecast bias, each of these common metrics that you measure as a CPFR analyst every day, now you can have your number of phantom inventory alerts for that particular item in that particular week. Next to those other KPIs, how many have been corrected? How many have been audited? The number of stores that were visited. These are data points that then start to tell a more full story of the performance of your item, not just that you're at 97% in stock, but you can then speak to your phantom inventory percentage. You can speak to items that have percentage distribution void. You now know a more full picture to storytell whenever you're attempting to influence the replenishment manager or the buyer to take a specific action to improve volume or just replenishment flow of your product to the shelf.
Brennan, speaking of winning with Walmart and the theme here for today in Conversations in Retail, we are also looking for external data sets. Think about Neilpigs. Now Walmart Luminate is giving you kind of a new type of data set, which is called Neilpigs, meaning when you got an online order and then the picker goes to kind of get your product and they couldn't pick, they picked it to zero. There was no product on the shelf. So those are kind of external also data sets or sensors that we could use to understand, well, there was an actual out of stock problem that maybe through kind of pattern matching we couldn't find. So using external data sets to win at Walmart, like NeoPix, so that you could actually send an alert of phantom inventory, not phantom inventory, of an out of stock alert with a problem at retail ops. It's also extremely important so that the algorithm could learn, but also so that you could send the right alert to the merchandisers or whoever is actually going to do the store audit for your brand. So I just want to kind of connect the dots because it's a new data set that a lot of companies are starting to use.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is speaks to the gap between what you prefer to report as in stock versus your on shelf availability. There, it's hard to measure, but one thing you can measure is when you receive data from actual results, and you may have an item that you believe the performance is doing well, but you can't possibly be meeting your goals if your meal pick percentage is disproportionate to other items or even your peer set within the category. So knowing those results and then how do you action them? This is where I say you have to put them next to other measures. If your organization is only attempting to understand meal picks, only looking at meal pick percentage, but not understanding your current in-stock percentage over time, your forecast results over time, your order, your fill rate, these common CPFR metrics, and now your meal pick, it's difficult to assign the correct solution or the correct process to mitigate that solution. So spot on, Jorge. Thanks for sharing that.
Last but not least, because I know we're over time, but here, when you think about the smart CPFR workflows, it goes in the same line, right? OSA, we're using it mostly with merchandisers for retail operations and execution, but also think about an underlying cost being an under forecast, right? And so you spot it with your data, the insights, the way you configure the platform, and then you know that there's a big tendency for a particular item. Plus, many stores at Walmart that they're being under forecasted heavily, man, like probably a 20% of forecast accuracy. So as you create those exceptions, you receive them into your email so that you could be ready and equipped to kind of discuss those with your replenishment managers or what we call the inventory health team so that they could kind of go and make the forecast live for you in some cases, not always, and execute and improve kind of the execution of those items that were under forecast because your sales, your POS sales. And we could even go deeper to see, well, maybe that was because there was a discount or things like that. So I think just want to kind of show you an example also of a smart CPFR workflow in terms of an under forecast. Another one could be an under inventory, right? Where you create an incremental order or the famous SSL dependent on the replenishment model. So I don't want to kind of go deep into this, but we just wanted to give you a snapshot of what Bops next generation CPFR is doing to enable customer supply chain teams, replenishment, and some sales analysts to kind of better improve out of stocks and overstocks in the Walmart network. Anything else that you want to add, Brennan, before we kind of closed out the session?
Yeah, no, this was it. This is great. Thanks, Jorge.
Awesome. I think we just wanted to kind of, as mentioned, just give you a brief snippet of what is Bops, what do we do, next generation CPFR, what is our approach, how are we helping other suppliers, and give you kind of an example of a successful story. If you guys have any questions, Brennan, you're in Northwood, Arkansas, close to Walmart. Usually they're once a month as well. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our upcoming community events, we're doing a lot of events that are called Supply Chain Collaboration Waves, Coffees in our Northwood, Arkansas. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or go into our website, bops.ai. So thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure. And we're always here to talk about CPFR, collaborative replenishment, out of stocks and overstocks if you guys have any questions or comments.